accurate representation of me right now? Please send help. The man who started it all. You probably know Grian as the guy who pressed the button that opened the rift, setting off this entire crossover in the first place. After receiving a strange message,
Toy Mika Jam is nifty.
Grian consulted with his supercomputer, Grumbot, who instructed him to gather the other hermits to head through the portal. After doing so, Grian almost immediately recognized that he had ended up on the Empire's SMP. After discovering that the rift has been sealed, Grian decided to settle an empire on his own for the time being, formerly known as Hermitland, currently known as Hermitopia. Further, Grian proposed that, to fit the Empire's law, he wants to make a hermit its own species on the server, much like how there are elves, goblins, and ocean people in the world of empires. So naturally, Grian built a machine that shrinks the hermits down to the size of a hobbit, first getting Scar to try it out and then using it on himself. Finally, Grian plans to industrialize Hermitopia with the run-of-the-mill hermitcraft farms, bringing the server's items production progress centuries into the future, and he has set up the iconic hermitcraft minigame, Tag, for everyone to play. After passing through the rift, Carolus and Jevin discovered that they were on the Sanctuary's doorstep, where they recognized their good friend from the real world, Mythical Sausage. In typical Sanctuary fashion, Sausage welcomed Carolus and Jevin with open arms, and he gave them a tour of the Jungle Empire, introducing them to his friend, Bubbles, and his father, Eddie. Sausage then donned his new friends with honorary shields of Sanctuary, making them official residents of the Empire. Carolus would later receive a dodo bird from Pixel Rifts in exchange for him to build a farmhouse in the ancient capital. So things can only get more exciting for the duo here on out. In need of some new pirates to join his crew, Joey Graceffa was excited when Zombie Cleo and the Void stumbled upon the Eversea. The Sumer and Cleo requested to join Pirate Joe's crew, but to become the swashbuckling scallywags they were meant to be, Joey laid down 3 criteria. 1, they had to swear their hatred for Pirate Captain Skeletron. 2, since all pirates need a good parrot, the Sumer and Cleo had to each find a pirate companion. And 3, they had to build a pirate ship of their own. Although they found chickens instead of parrots and built a lackluster pirate vessel, Joey still dubbed the duo official pirates of the Eversea, complete with pirate hats, after Zazuma and Cleo provided the loyalty by attempting to assassinate Joey's nemesis, the Great Witch Shelby. Joey was even more impressed when his new crewmates backstabbed the pirate after he damaged their new ship, because their betrayal showed their dedication to the pirate way. Cleo and Zazuma's next mission is to finish the job they started, bring back Shelby's head to Pirate Joe. Looks like the truce didn't last very long. Meanwhile, over in Tumbletown, Good Times with Scar did something nobody else has dared to do. He made friends with Sheriff Jimmy. While giving Scar a tour of his empire, Scar came across Sheriff Jimmy's deputy badge, and he made it his goal to become the new deputy of Tumbletown now that Fwip has been fired. Jimmy tasked Scar with a mission. Should Scar kill Fwip and bring him back the deputy badge the goblin still has, he would be made deputy of Tumbletown. Although everyone else continued with their usual shenanigans by poking fun at Toyish Timmy, Scar tried a different approach to speaking with the sheriff. Scar reminded Jimmy that Sheriff Woody is a respectable, hard-working man, and he told the sheriff that there was no shame in embracing the label. This obviously still bothered Jimmy, but he told Scar that he would think about it. Scar would also build his own starter home in Tumbletown, a stream train along the tracks Jimmy has been struggling to finish all season long. Flip tried to convince Scar to move to the goblins by bribing him with a jelly cat, but Scar is yet to move out of Tumbletown. Tango Tech originally surfaced in the mangrove forests of the Empire server after he passed through the rift. After meeting the Great Witch Shelby and getting the grand tour of the Evermore, the witch took Tango to meet the other players in Sanctuary, and she gave Tango her spare witch's hat. Tango couldn't have guessed what would come next. After making his way into Tumbletown, he came face to face with his soulmate from Double Life, Solidarity. While on Double Life, Tango and Jimmy were known as Team Rancher because they lived together on a ranch and they became really good friends that way. In order to convince his ex soulmate to live in Tumbletown, Solidarity built a new ranch just for Tango. While Tango has been living with Fwib as a redstone engineer in the Goblins, Solidarity's ranch just might sway him to move over to Tumbletown. While Dockham77 wandered around the server, he came across Pixel Rift's Great Bridge, where he discovered Fwib's hog, Snot, hooked up by a lead. Doc took Snot along for a ride, and he stumbled upon a familiar face. Pixel Rifts gave Doc a tour of the ancient capital, telling Doc a little bit more about his role as the games master on the Empires server. Next, Doc and Snot traveled over to Critter City, where Doc was completely baffled by Lizzie's humanoid foxes and toads. Doc and Snot made their way into the nearby goblins, where Doc explored a bit on his own and returned Snot to a stable. A little while later, Fwib jump-scared Doc, demanding him to tell him where Snot went. After telling him the truth, Fwib went on his way to find his trusty steed. Finally, Doc tried to make his way back through the rift, only to discover that it had been sealed off. So he is currently a lonely wanderer in an unfamiliar world. When Cupfan135 joined the Empire server, Scott led the Hermit along with Pearlescent Moon and Impulse SV to Glimmergrove. There, Princess Catherine revealed that she was secretly a monster slayer by night, and she made Cupfan and the friends promise to keep her secret. In order to prove their loyalty, the Hermits went on a mission to gather more mob heads for her monster museum, and by doing so, they became official battle buddies of Glimmergrove. While Cupfan originally lived in the hole in the ground, he decided to do what he calls the Empires Challenge, where he gathered one stack of blocks from every empire on the server to build himself a home. Cup gave himself 13 minutes, 1 minute per emperor, to build his new home. And it turned out pretty well, all things considered. Elsewhere, Impulse SV came upon the Empire of Animalia, where he told Lizzie and Fwib his story about going through the portal, but he denied knowing anything about what happened to the adventurers they had sent through, Gary and Sniff. Lizzie gave Impulse a tour of Critter City, and as a dwarf, Impulse fit right in with Fwib the Goblin, so much that they formed an alliance. The Goblin and Dwarf became such good friends that Impulse even stole Joel's stratosphere so that Fwib could get Joel back for filling his entire base with chickens a few weeks back. Impulse would later settle in Hermitopia, and as a redstone engineer, he naturally began industrializing the nation with its first iron and raid farms. After being displaced in the Empire's world, Joe found himself just outside of Stratos, where he was greeted by the Orion Sound. Ollie led Joe to Chromia, where he stayed in Scott's Inn for the night. However, when he woke up, Joe discovered that he had somehow been transported to Jimmy's water tower upon Pixel Rift's Great Bridge. A sign in the water tower warned Joe to beware the pumpkin, which strangely came true when later in the episode, a zombie with a pumpkin head attacked Joe out of nowhere. Joe also met up with Impulse SV, where he agreed to join his fellow hermit as the citizen of Hermitopia. Pearlescent Moon has had one of the strangest experiences so far, to say the least. In the world of Hermitcraft, Pearl discovered that someone, she didn't know who, had strangely placed sunflowers all over her home base. Coming in the world of Empires, Pearlescent Moon's skin changed from a typical cleaning lady attire to her Mother of Sunflower skin from season 1 of Empires. While both Sausage and Ollie recognized Pearlescent Moon as Saint Pearl, Pearl denied ever having known the goddess she apparently resembles. Just like in every timeline, Mythical Sausage and Pearl became really good friends after he gave her a tour on the land of Sanctuary. Sausage has finally come to accept that this Pearl is different from the one that he knows from his religion of Saint Pearl, and he's okay with that. This Pearl seems cool in her own right, even if she doesn't have any connections to his goddess. But who knows, maybe more lore will be revealed in the coming episodes. All Symmetry has had an even more peculiar time in the world of Empires. After being recognized by the other players such as Scott and Sausage, Hermitcraft Falls soon began to realize that there was another Falls in the world of Empires. Hermit Falls plans to avoid Empires Falls at all costs, because she states the entire world would collapse if they were to meet. On the other hand, after taking a brief trip, Empires Falls came back to the server, only to discover that the Hermits had passed through the rift. Empires Falls had been a little slower to catching on to the other Falls, but she has had some hints that not all is right, such as when Sausage and Ollie mentioned the other Falls to her, or when Cupfan acted like he recognized her. Hermit Falls has been kind of spying on Empires Falls just outside of Cogsmeade, and it seems like she has some kind of history with her Empire's counterpart. You see, Hermit Falls states that that while she was a tad worried about going through the rift, she didn't think it was too likely that she would come across her alternate self because the multiverse is an incredibly large place. Hermit Falls was also relieved that Empires Falls still has retained her confusion and memory loss, which means that Hermit Falls somehow knows about the mysterious world that Empires Falls came from and her dark past. Hermit Falls built a tower in Cogsmeade, where she plans to continue gathering intel on her counterpart while remaining undercover. So we hope to learn more about the two falses that connected very soon. Now, Gemini Tape, she's a different story. As it turns out, Princess Gem of Dawn and Hermit Gem are actually the same person who somehow exist on both servers. Gem plays on Hermitcraft to satisfy her creative Minecraft need with her friends, but Empires is her great escape from that world where she can roleplay her D&D character with her other friends. But Gem began to freak out when she discovered that her two worlds were colliding. After hearing her own voice from the other side of the rift, Hermit Gem knew that the portal would probably lead to the world of Empires, and she did everything in her power to hide her apparently embarrassing Empire Sona from the Hermits. However, it was too late. The only question remains, how does Gem travel between the two worlds without the rift? Nobody can really know for sure. Better late than never. After B-Dubs heard that Grian's portal led to the Empire's SMP, he went through it right before it closed. If you know B-Dubs, you know that he will never allow nighttime to come on the SMPs he plays on. As the self-described Sleep King, B-Dubs is the player who always sleeps before night falls, keeping hostile mobs from spawning into the world and bringing back the daylight. Because of this, Gemini Tay invited B-Dubs to join her Empire's religion in Dawn that worships the sun. Naturally, B-Dubs then dubbed himself the god of Gem's religion, got himself a nice set of tailored glowstone robes, and had everyone begin to worship him. When Sausage wanted one of the pairs of sunglasses that came with the religion, B-Dubs helped him convince Gem that he had converted to the new religion by creating the facade that the Cathedral of St. Pearl was now dedicated to B-Dubs. We couldn't say what B-Dubs plans to do with this newfound divinity, but if we know anything about him, it will be chaotic to say the least.